Welcome to the first Opportunities and What You Need to Know series in the partnership with SFU Alumni Relationship, BD School of Business, Career and Volunteer Services, as well as Work Integrated Learning Offices at SFU. Today, we're pleased to present to you the Finance and Insurance Sector panel. My name is Natalia Soloshenko. I'm the manager of the undergraduate careers at BD School of Business. Along with my team of advisors, we support career exploration and development of our students. I will facilitate the session and moderate questions that come through from the participants, from our attendees. We will open up the floor for questions from attendees at the end of the panel. Please feel free to utilize the Q&A session at the bottom of your screen and ask any of the questions there. Along with our panelists, I'm joined today by my colleague Yana, who will be moderating the panel discussion. Welcome, Yana, and the Finance and Insurance Sector expert panelists.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Natalia. So my name is Yana Marikova. I'm one of the career advisors at the Career Management Center at the BD School of Business. I'm involved in an array of projects and activities related to careers with our BBA students, and I have a bit of a specialization, and I focus on finance and accounting concentrations. So I guess that makes me a good moderator for this panel. Great. We have a few people joining us still, but we've got over 80 participants so far, and we would love to get to know you a little bit better. So Natalia is going to launch a quick poll to get to know our audience. If you can please identify if you're a current student, alumni, so on and so forth. It should be on your screen. Excellent. Thank you, Natalia. So majority of our audience today, we can see our current SFU students. We've also got almost 20% of SFU alumni, and then we're joined by staff and faculty and a few other folks as well. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for sharing that. Great. As Natalia mentioned, we are recording today's session and it will be posted at a later time. So you can definitely review this for all the wonderful industry experts that are presenting their advice and their tips and tricks. I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves and they can share a little bit about their roles and areas of specialty within the finance and insurance industries. We're going to go ahead and start with Amy and then we'll move forward to Andrea. So Amy, go ahead.
Thank you, everyone, and thanks for taking time out at the end of your days. So my name is Amy Sidhu. I am the Director of Talent Acquisition for Coast Capital Savings. I actually just started this new gig during the pandemic, so it is possible to get a job during this time. And so I've been here almost 2 months, and my role really is to lead the recruitment function for our organization nationally. And that means tapping into talent in the market today, which I'm hopeful for all of you, and to really keep an eye on trends and where we can start to develop pipelines of strong candidates we can bring into the organization. Before coming here, the last 5 years I spent at Vancouver Coastal Health Authority, and I led their recruitment function on the physician side and on the corporate side. And so my team was responsible for recruiting all 17,000 staff. It was an awesome experience. And before that, I was in private sector, so on the executive search side. So I'm excited to be here and learn from you as well, and as well to impart some of the learnings I've had so far in the financial sector. And I'll stop there.
Great. Thank you, Andrea. Or sorry, Amy, and over to Andrea now.
Hi, thanks. Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to participate in this panel. We're living in a whole new world of recruiting. So I've been a recruiter with RBC for an unbelievable 21 years. Just blows me away when I actually say that number. One, I don't feel that old, although on camera I'm reminded I am. I've recruited for any number of different roles within RBC, but primarily being based in Vancouver, I do focus on personal and commercial banking. My portfolio right now is 100% early talent acquisition, so that's student and new grad. I'm part of a much larger team that's spread across the country. We're quite diverse. It's a pretty interesting time for early talent acquisition, but those are one of the things that keeps recruiting exciting. So I'm happy to be here and share what I know so far, and quite honestly, what I don't know as well. So I'm looking forward to participating in this panel.
Great. Welcome, Andrea. We're going to go over to Lindsay.
Hi, great to be here today. I'm Lindsay Kalish. I am an alumni SFU grad. I won't share what year I graduated because I feel like that perhaps could age me, but got a Bachelor of Arts in Communications. Great, fantastic school. I work with Mackenzie Investments. I am the senior manager for our inside sales team out of our BC office. I've been with Mackenzie Investments for 14 years and now manage 2 different positions in our office that comprise about 10 people in our office, an inside sales role and a sales associate role. I am one of 5 of my role, Calgary, 2 in Toronto, and another office in Montreal. But really looking forward to being here and being a part of this panel today. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Lindsay. And over to Trevor.
Excuse me. Hello, everyone. My name is Trevor Butcher. I'm the manager of career connections at the Insurance Institute of Canada. You've heard a little bit about banking, wealth management, and investment so far, and then there's the third pillar of insurance, or of the financial services sector, which is the insurance industry. My portfolio is really about recognizing that students don't often wake up in the morning and say, gee, I want to be an insurance underwriter, or claims is my passion, or even realize that data science is something that you can do within the insurance industry as well. And so we have a lot of fun working with 60+ campuses across the country in demystifying what insurance is all about, and highlighting that there's a world of possibility where you can apply your skill set, your interests, and your experience to find a really rewarding career path. So excited to join my financial services colleagues today and to engage in the conversation.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you to all the panelists for taking the time and for those introductions. As mentioned, we have a series of questions pre-prepared, so I will pose those to the panelists, and you can choose to go in whichever order you prefer. And then for the attendees, I will just mention it one more time. At the bottom of your screen, you do have a Q&A button. And if you have specific questions that you would like to ask our panelists, please submit them there. Natalia will be moderating them, and we will go to audience questions closer to the end of our time together. To kick things off, a bit of an icebreaker. We can't help but be in this space together digitally, and it's because of the situation that we're in, the pandemic. So many of us are finding ourselves working from home or studying from home. So what is one practice or tip that has helped you be effective when working remotely? Trevor,
I'll go. I'll just say that for me, it's just been, I think it's important to keep a routine and to plan out your day. I also think it's important to like get dressed and you know, do your hair and whatever, act like you're going to work. I know from a lot of colleagues of mine, they feel like it's made a difference for them in what they're doing every day, but I think it's having that routine and sticking to it as if you were actually at the office. I'm sitting at my dining room table. And so, you know, we have to find ways to kind of bring back some of the normalcy of being in an office when we're actually not.
Absolutely.
Amy, I would totally agree with you. And actually, that would be the #1 thing I would say as well. Plan for your day. You know, take a look at your calendar at the beginning of the week. It's also really important to end your day. You know, set your hours of work, and just as you would have to leave the office at some point, you need to shut down your technology, turn off your laptop, turn off your phone, and go be social in some way, some fashion, even if it is in another technology, but put work away. It's really easy to burn out when you work from home, and the day can just continue and continue and continue. So keep that structure, and think about the things you also like to do: exercise, read a book, play a video game, whatever it might be.
Absolutely. I see Lindsay nodding in approval.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. And early on in this pandemic, a colleague of mine mentioned that they had heard that to kind of mark the beginning and the end of the day typically would be associated with a commute of some kind. Some people have taken to walking around the block almost as their commute. So perhaps at the end of the day, close your computer down, go for a walk around the block and come back. And that almost signifies, okay, that part of my day is over. So that's kind of something that might help too, also on the study side of it, to kind of mark the transition. And also, as mentioned, the structure in those things that make you feel mentally good, whether it's a run, a meditation, yoga, a book. But it's almost important, I think, because we're sitting in front of our desks or dining rooms or wherever we all are, that you kind of lose sight of that. And so I think it's really important to, whatever kind of speaks to you for you time, to make sure you schedule that in as well.
I would completely agree with sort of the sentiments that my colleagues have shared so far, and definitely about the routine, the structure, and setting defined boundaries. A couple of pieces that I would add to that is just being really kind and patient with yourself right now. There's a lot going on, and that we're digesting and consuming in our space, and so there may be times where you do need just to take a breath and to take a minute and to kind of just recognize, like, why am I feeling this way right now? Or why is it feeling like that I don't have as much gas in the tank? And there can be very real reasons for that. So the mindfulness and the stepping away and the just giving yourself the space to kind of acknowledge and own all that's happening in the world and how you're responding to it, I think is really, really important. The other piece that I would just add to that as well is that when we talk about building in routine, sometimes we forget that work is a very social place for many of us, right? There are conversations that happen off the sides of our desk or connection points that take place over the lunch hour or what have you. How can you structure those into your work from home kind of approach as well? So can you use, an online chat system that your company has for communication purposes? Can you reach out to a colleague and just ask a question? Can you schedule a little bit of time about, maybe it's a quick coffee chat, maybe it's a quick lunch together that's just got a little bit of that social component to it, so that you're feeling connected, and it's not just within your immediate team. Who else might you be able to reach out to and just feel sort of a little bit more of that broader reach within the company scope?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for those answers. So we are facing lots of challenges and changes, in working from home now and working remotely. But what are specific challenges and opportunities within your sector or organization right now?
I'll jump in. I read this question and I thought, wow, that's a big question. Challenges. I think number one, we've been restructuring very, very quickly. And, we honestly are faced with, we don't know what it's going to be like a month from now. And we're constantly working hard to communicate with each other that we don't have all the answers. So so that can be challenging, especially if you're someone who likes to plan, farther ahead, or know what's coming up, or know what your job is going to look like, or where you're going to be. On the opposite side of that, these are also opportunities. It's an opportunity to build skill sets and to communicate with different people. We know our clients are facing challenges, and so, just being really empathetic, knowing, being really patient, being patient with each other, because we're dealing with people who might be dealing with high anxiety and emotion right now as well. So, I mean, those are just a few things, but as I say, we're learning how to work in a different way and connect with clients in a different fashion. Technology is just blowing up. What an amazing opportunity. Look at, I wouldn't have been doing Zoom a month ago, and now it's becoming a regular opportunity. So
I'll jump in. I will just add that for us at Coast Capital, one of the challenges is we've closed a number of our branches, and so obviously that means it's not business as usual, and that's a huge challenge, right? We want to be able to service our members in our community and provide meaningful employment for our staff, and so I don't want to discourage anyone from thinking that, you know, it's a horrible time to graduate. It's not. I think it's also creating a lot of opportunity, because the fact is that we have been forced to think about how we can work with technology, how we can be innovative in how we service our clients and customers in whatever environment you work in. And so right now, I think a lot of the opportunity is also how are we looking at process optimization, because we probably have a little bit more capacity because it's not business as usual right now. And I think most people would agree. And so those are the big kind of challenges for us. You know, we're starting to reopen slowly, which is really positive. But to Andrea's point, we also don't have a timeline of when back to normal will be, right? And so on the flip side, it's also creating opportunity for new roles, I would say, in technology or kind of mobile finance specialists who are able to service our members or clients or customers, whatever you call it, in a different way, right? And so I'd say for this group, if the large cohort of you are current students and almost new grads, keep an eye on that, right? And be able to be conscious of how are you selling yourself in the market to be someone who can, you know, take on a bit of that ambiguity in the market when things are a bit uncertain.
I'll add in now. Totally agree with everyone, what everyone is saying. And I think the big thing that's come from this time is kind of innovation and welcoming of technology. Our role in our office is the team partners with advisors looking to try to provide top product and value adds to their business, understanding that these advisors have investor clients, and obviously the face-to-face interactions, like many of our jobs, have all shifted. And so really it's just kind of embracing other ways to connect with people, make it valuable, and really just go back to that innovation and find different ways to bring value to that interaction. And again, to build on what Amy said, I think it's just, perhaps this is a great opportunity for yourselves out there, is just looking for different ways to be innovative in how you express and communicate your ability to adapt. I think that's probably one of the biggest things in all the roles that we've partnered with, is just seeing how people are able to adapt and get business done.
Absolutely. I think right now is the period where we are seeing that adaptation. I think initially there was a little bit of emergency response, kind of dealing with the immediate, and then there was the accommodation phase, which was sort of, let's just wait this out and see how long we might be able to shelter in place and kind of weather out the storm, if you will. And I think it became clear to us within a matter of about 2 weeks that this was going to be here for a while, right? And so it was important that there was a pivot within the industry. And I don't love the term, it's getting used a lot, but truly within the insurance industry, we took a 75-year-old model and we accelerated its timeline. It was already being disrupted, and we made it kind of fit within this space very, very quickly. And I think that, a number of financial services organizations needed to do that, leveraging technology in different ways. I want you to think about right now in a global pandemic, when there's a flood in Fort McMurray and flying puts people at risk. We needed to figure out ways that our independent adjusters could do their job safely, right? And to make sure that they were able to still respond and get people back to where they need to be when that loss occurred. risk managers who are involved in the temporary structures that were being built for hospitals in case their ICUs became overwhelmed. Individuals, within the brokering world, figuring out how to have confidential conversations using public platforms like this, right? And so how can we bind coverage? You couldn't do that over email previously, and now we're finding ways to be able to create approvals using virtual modes of communication. And so things that were kind of in the hopper were priorities for the industry as we moved into sort of a more technologically based phase have just simply been accelerated. And we've seen a lot of really neat adaptation, as well as a lot of giving back. And we can talk about that as we move through, but it's been really interesting to see the opportunities, as you said, Andrea, that have emerged, within our space to be able to be innovative, to create, and to see a lot of really positive as well changes that I think will be here for the long term.
Mm-hmm. So there's definitely themes of staying agile, disrupting what is the norm, and also just pivoting into the direction of where all of these jobs are going. But are there specific roles or positions that are critical or in demand right now? And do you think that those roles are going to change after the pandemic is over?
I guess I'll jump in again. So roles and positions, right now we continue to focus on positions that I just want to say advisor roles, and that covers all aspects. I mean, we're still in business. We're open for business. How we're delivering that. So again, we're faced with branch closures as well. We're going through a slow reopening, but a lot of our advisors are working from their home offices. Those support teams are working from, some are still critical and in office, but where we could move a lot of our workforce to work from home, we did, to allow space for those who had no other option. When I go in to see what jobs are posted, I see positions posted on a regular basis still. I think one thing that I have noticed is the job may be in Toronto, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the chair is in Toronto. So there's some shifts there. So I still see a lot of different opportunities. I think what's really important is to not take it for granted that you're going to have to relocate anymore. Could be that we're quite able to train you from wherever you're located. I mean, we're still in discussion. What will that look like? Definitely, we hear there's impact on roles. We're working through training. Our model of training in person might be a little different. Fortunately, we had a lot of resources already built to train virtually, but there is nothing like that in-person contact. So I think being flexible in your job search is really important, because there are job postings. Mm-hmm. It may not be as traditional as we might think. So I will say, don't underestimate those call center or advice center roles. They've become even more critical today.
Great. Yes, absolutely. And just to add to that question, if anybody else wants to jump in as well, if maybe recruitment practices have changed as well, even around traditional roles, we would love to know more about that as well.
I can speak just to build on what Andrea was saying. Is I think one of the biggest things that many companies, but I know Mackenzie Investments has really learned from this, is how well people can do their jobs from home, which is obviously nothing that we ever would have imagined that this would put us to the test to see what that actually looked like. But I think that definitely is prompting companies to perhaps reflect and what jobs do need to be in the office. Is it the right move for the big office spaces perhaps that some of these companies have? And our head office is in Toronto, and I know that's definitely a thought process that's going through their mind, what that will look like. As far as our sales team across the board, there's been no changes, no reductions, and so obviously feeling very fortunate for that. But again, it's just really been the opportunity is to adjust to what that looks like and how we can continue to do the business that we need to do and adjust to what that looks like technology wise. But yeah, I agree. We have intern and co-op students join all of our sales offices. And last week we were onboarding 2 in Calgary and 2 in Vancouver, and never had to do kind of all of that onboarding from work from home and getting technology set up. So there's definitely the learning curve for all of us. But I think it's obviously pushed us to kind of do our best jobs and reevaluate how we do things. So, which I think has been a great opportunity as well.
For us, I would say that because a lot is not done in person at the moment, there's a lot of value that's being placed on I think the advice experience part of it. And so how are we as financial planners, as mortgage specialists, as wealth management experts, how are we providing expert advice and still a solid experience while we're not doing it face to face? And some members have struggled with this, right? And not everyone is as savvy with technology, and so it's new. And so the other kind of opportunity that's come out of that is how do we create these cool platforms to be able to communicate these things and to work together. On the recruitment front, how we're doing things differently, I just think a lot more is being done by video, right? Where in normal circumstances, you'd be able to walk into someone's office and shake a hand. I think those days are long gone. So I think from a recruiting perspective, we're being a lot more creative in terms of where we post, how we engage candidates on websites or chat groups in terms of specialized industry-focused ones. And then attending these types of events, right, to see what kind of feedback we get after. And you never know what potential candidates can come out of a forum like this as well.
I think, too, one of the things that's really kind of interesting is within the insurance industry, because we touch so many different sectors, one thing to kind of observe is like, where is there change or pivot in demand within the rest of the labor market or the economy? So cybersecurity experts within the insurance business are equally required to be able to help all of these businesses that have now transitioned to online delivery, right? So, making sure that there is appropriate cyber coverage in place so that if information is breached, that there's financial, protection for that. I think the other kind of piece to look at is, things around life sciences or big pharma, or, talking about pandemic preparedness. Insurance has a role to play in that. And so, again, the trusted advice piece, when organizations are making decisions, maybe they produced one thing and are now producing personal protective equipment or hand sanitizer. Believe it or not, there's implications from an insurance perspective in that decision. And so insurance companies needed to be nimble enough to say, you're doing a really great thing for society. Here's how we're going to be able to change your policy without disrupting your business so that you can do that, right? And so that's not normal practice, that an organization in less than a span of a couple of weeks fully transitions its business model, and insurance professionals needed to kind of weigh in and be like, let's help you do that safely so that you're able to meet this need, but not necessarily put yourself at any sort of financial risk as a result of doing so. The final piece that I'll talk about is just the recruiting component. So as Amy was talking about, the trusted advisor kind of role, the position where we're able to provide expertise. when tensions are high, anxiety is high, it's really important to be able to offer a little bit of certainty in the face of that uncertainty. And so what our professionals are able to do that. And so I think from our recruiting perspective, we're looking for individuals who are savvy with technology, but also able to provide that service experience and to demonstrate their empathy, their ability to take something that's complex and to break that down, and to give it to people in real goods kind of terms so that they can make the decisions they need to protect what's important to them.
Great. And Trevor, I'll start with you for this next question because you started kind of on the trajectory already of developing skills and empathy and still having that customer service piece be present. Are there any other skills that you would recommend our job seekers to develop in succeeding in the insurance industry? And then everyone else can jump in afterwards as well.
I think students have this really unique opportunity right now because so much of your learning and so much of your engagement is going to be in this virtual world. To your familiarity with this environment, sell it. Talk about it consistently with how you're able to leverage this to collaborate with one another, how you've been able to acquire and assimilate new information. That will alleviate onboarding concerns that organizations may have about your ability to be able to do the job if they can't see you face to face. Talking about your success during this time is also really pivotal. I think though, in terms of concrete skills, curiosity, being able to make connections, to be able to be, ask those kinds of tough questions and get the information you need. I think the other is problem solving, critical thinking. There's a lot of information coming at us very quickly. How are you able to take that and to determine whether or not it's a valid source of information and then proceed? Or whether or not there's questions to be asked or things to be able to be clarified. And the final kind of piece that I'll talk about is that, I guess, ability to take data and information and use it to inform your decisions. So it's not so much anymore just about the technical skill. It's about the research and the knowledge building and being able to be resourceful that will really be able to, I guess, catapult you forward or distinguish you if you have that in combination with customer service skills. So anything to do with the data-driven decision-making or data analysis in combination with customer service is a winning combination in our industry.
I'll jump in. Thanks, Trevor. I think, so if most of you are new grads, maybe I'll partition my response to focus on new grads first and then some of the alum who might have some deeper work experience. So as a new grad, I bet some of the questions you have is, I don't have a lot of experience, how do I get in the door? And so when you are interviewing or when you are crafting your resume, I think it's really important, regardless of if your only experience is being a student and working on some cool group projects or working at a server at Cactus Club, wherever, you're identifying how you're able to move through complex issues. That can be a customer issue. How did you solve it? And so I think one angle I've always coached more of my junior team members on is break down your examples in an interview or when you're presenting on a resume into what is the issue, what action did I take, what was the result, right? And when you're speaking to that in an interview or trying to demonstrate that point on a resume, make it very clear, right? And so whoever is reading or sitting across the table from you can make the connection between this person is analyzing the problem, developed a solution, boom, got a good result out of it, right? And so I think if there's most of you on the line who are new grads or about to be new graduates, focus on those kind of three areas when you're interviewing and telling people about your experience, and relate it back to your coursework. There's lots of great coursework experience and projects that you work on that you can get those meaty experiences from, right? For the more experienced, maybe newer grads or alumni who have some work experience, I would say not too dissimilar. And I think the the bigger piece you'd have to showcase in interview and even on your resume is what impact have you had on the business, right? I mean, at the end of the day, regardless of if it's a not-for-profit or a for-profit like all of us are here on the line, it's all about impact to the business. Whoever you're interviewing with or whoever you're trying to get a job with wants to see, what have you done to make this a better portfolio, a better, better sales numbers, whatever, in terms of process that you've put in place, great new customers that you've brought in, whatever the context may be. So I think you always want to be showing how you're driving results. And those experiences can be garnered through a number of different ways, right? It doesn't just have to be in a professional workplace. It could be through your coursework as well. So I'll stop there. I feel like I've spoken a lot, but I hope that helps.
I agree with everything said previously. I would say, one thing that's really important as well is, talk about how you've collaborated. Be clear about the type of tools you've used in order to connect with your colleagues, your teammates. It's even more important today, especially when we're not face-to-face and people aren't observing what you're accomplishing, is, to talk about the initiatives you've taken. What are the steps you took to be proactive? It might be even just in presenting an idea, even if that idea wasn't accepted, but the fact that you saw an opportunity and you were willing to present it. Taking initiative, being proactive, collaborating with your colleagues around new ideas, not being afraid to participate in events. It can be hard to have your voice heard, but if you're in an interview and you've got a panel, they want you to, to be responsive. They want to see how you communicate virtually when you're in this sort of situation. It's okay to use your hands. So be yourself as well and be comfortable. I think these are all really important things to put forward and skills to continue to develop. It's also hard to remember to have fun in parts of this, and I think it's important to talk about how you socialize with your colleagues as well and create that team environment even though we're virtual. So those are some skills that we'll be looking for, and I think in our interviews and ask some of those questions around resilience, and again back to the initiative and proactivity.
Yes, again, agree with everyone's comments. I thought I'd add another kind of layer on of people that I've seen successful, perhaps new into our team at Mackenzie Investments. And some of the things that I've seen really come forward is that self-motivated and problem solving that was already kind of discussed even in the interview side of it, but also taking that approach of I'm going to try to solve a bit of this problem and try to understand it, come forward in those kind of further conversations, whether it's a mentor or whether it's your supervisor or manager, but just come with an idea. This is how I'm going to approach this. Would you recommend moving forward like this? Or how would you adjust this? I think some of the greatest partnerships that I've seen of people, whether it be a colleague, a direct colleague, or someone on my team is those that try to approach whatever scenario or situation it is and come with some ideas. And they're obviously seeing that engaged level. The other part of it I would also kind of relate to is being resourceful. In our industry, being an investment world, often what's talked about at our company for people kind of looking to progress is a student of the markets. So by that meaning looking for kind of any way to build understanding of the industry, of markets, of our company, of other companies out there. And obviously that could be, if investments isn't your interest, it could be parlayed into kind of whatever facet is interesting you, is just really to be that resourceful person and become a student of whatever that marketplace or topic would look like.
Great, thank you for those tips, absolutely. One of the things that we pride ourselves on at SFU is having lots of events for our students to connect with employers. we can't have these events, or at least in person anymore, as we're well aware. But how would you suggest that our job seekers connect with employers right now? How do they show that initiative?
I think people just have to reach out. I remember when I graduated a long time ago, you know, you ask for those informational interviews, and now's a good time. I'd encourage all of you. I think there's like 92 people online here. Reach out, and you'd be surprised, A, how many people want to help, and help be a guide in this uncertain time, and B, I think people have capacity right now because we're not at full loads in a lot of places. It's still very busy, don't get me wrong. But I think there's some room to help people. And so I would just take the initiative, send those LinkedIn messages or find email addresses. If you know someone who knows someone else, ask them. I think that's one of the best ways, right? You all probably have these untapped networks that you're not aware of, like a relative or someone who knows someone. Like, get in on their emails and or pick up the phone, right? And then attending these events. I think this is always a great way to connect, and I'm sure any of us on the line here would be happy to help if and when we can. And yeah, so I would just say take the initiative.
Just to kind of build upon what Amy said, it's I've been a part of other student kind of forums where we're talking kind of on these topics, and I totally agree that there's networks that kind of all of us have that we probably aren't really aware of. And just to build on what was mentioned before too, of always being curious, asking questions, while asking those questions, that engagement, socially distance, chat with your neighbor if you don't know what they do, have a conversation. Maybe it's not what you think that you would like to do, but kind of opening up that conversation and learning about what it is that they do. You could be brought into a world that you have no idea really exists. So I think that would be probably what I would highlight, just looking for ways to ask people questions. And if it comes from a genuine curiosity spot, who knows where that conversation will go and what sort of information that you will find out. But that's, and these virtual platforms and conversations and LinkedIn, yeah, I think are just hugely important, especially now.
I know, you know, for us in RBC, you know, we're asking the same question. How do we connect with our students when we can't be on campus and in person? We're actually focused on that right now and collaborating and taking this time to talk about, you know, how can we make sure we're still creating opportunities. I am definitely doing more one-on-one sessions, but I can tell you my calendar books up pretty fast. LinkedIn is really good. You know, and I say too, it's not always recruiters that should be the first person to go to. You know, look at people who are doing interesting work and don't be afraid to reach out and create those conversations in those organizations that you're interested in. Because I think too, a lot of people are feeling the same way. You know, I don't know how to be available, or I don't know how to connect, and they're waiting for someone to reach out. So take that initiative. But LinkedIn, 10,000 Coffee, that platform, it's the best opportunity ever now. Watch for sessions that are being hosted and participate, because it's a great way to identify individuals that you might want to connect with. People are very open about sharing their names and how to connect. So those are just some ways. But don't procrastinate as well. You know, I want to say, don't wait till the job is there. Actually start reaching out and building out your networks in those firms that you're targeting as your employers of choice, because when an opportunity arrives, you're more likely to be the person they remember.
All of this is really great advice in terms of just like, you know, keeping active and continuing to realize that the majority of professionals want to help the next generation of talent to find their place within each of our industries. And I think one strategic advantage that I'd invite you to leverage is just the vast alumni network that comprises all that SFU is, right? There are SFU alum working in so many different organizations, and LinkedIn allows you to do a really simple search of that. Your career centers can also point you in the right direction and maybe even give you some lead-ins as to, you know, if you have the kinds of problems you want to solve, the kinds of environments you thrive in, the kinds of people that you want to work with already mapped out, it gets easier for people to kind of place, you know, you should really talk to X, right? So if you have spend some time clarifying sort of where you'd like to head and who the kinds of folks that you want to connect with, and your network will start to be able to help you navigate towards that when you have these conversations. Other piece that I'd invite you to consider is just the world of professional associations and groups that are having conversations virtually right now. So, you know, whether it's you know, within the insurance world, there's, you know, Young Brokers Network, there's the Young Insurance Professionals of British Columbia, there are networks within, you know, the Institute community, for example, events that you might be able to go to where you can meet people who are doing the work you want to do, right? And so right now in a socially distanced world, you know, yes, you may not be having that conversation, you know, at a fabulous venue in downtown Vancouver, but you are going to be having that conversation in a really genuine and kind of connected way that perhaps didn't exist before, right? And that openness is truly there. And people are welcoming those kinds of conversations to take place. But those events can be really great. The other is just to identify influencers in your space. Who's posting actively on LinkedIn? Who is maybe publishing in trade publications? Who is you know, giving a little bit of insight back at conferences and events? Maybe inviting people to connect with them on their personal LinkedIn page. What are some of the ways that you can capitalize on that? Chances are, if they're giving so much outwardly, they're able to take a little bit on inwardly and have that conversation and help you launch into sort of the career path that you'd ultimately like to be on.
Sorry, one thing I just wanted to add, and I think it's important for all of you. I mean, I know we have this on our career site at Coast Capital, is you can create a candidate profile for yourself. So I'd encourage you, if any of us look interesting as a potential employer, create a profile. And the cool thing you can do on ours is you can sign up to get notifications for whatever job is of interest to you, and we'll let you know when those vacancies come up. And I think a lot of people have this perception, oh, people probably don't go through every resume. Our recruiters do that. My team goes through all the resumes that apply to a role. That's the job, right? And so it never hurts to create those candidate profiles on the employer sites that you have interest in and make it snazzy, right? So that there's keywords that pop out, because when recruiters do keyword searches, they want to, you know, pick up on things like customer service or financial planner, you know, so make sure those things are in there, so that when those searches happen internally in our organizations, your resume gets flagged and you'll get notified.
Great. Thank you so much for those tips. I love how every single one of you touched on the fact that you do need to leverage that network, even if it's just your neighbor, for example, but connecting with individuals and truly coming from a place of curiosity and discovering as you go along. So using this as an opportunity to discover rather than just to, you know, knock on recruiters' doors to try to land the job right away. Great. Stepping away from the pandemic piece altogether, but what is the best resource for people who want to further understand your industry?
Our career site. Actually, not even just our career site, our whole website. I've been talking to a lot of different people right now, and I've actually, you know, I go into our website all the time. I can't know every role and I can't know every part of our business. I know a lot about HR and recruitment, but I don't know a lot about investment, the investment side of our business. I'm a career recruiter. When I need to know something that's going on in our industry, what's important to different parts of our business, I use our website, not just internal, but external. And there's so much information. There are resources available to sort of help you navigate and understand how our organization is structured. I find a lot of times people will go straight to the job postings when really, that job looks interesting. Let me find out what part of the business it's really representing. So that's your best resources for people to understand RBC as a starting point. And then it also allows you to make the most of those informational coffee chats, which is the next step of getting to know how does our organization and how do people in our organization function. You can ask great questions from what you've learned from our website and our career site.
I can go next. Yeah, just to build on that, I would say if you're interested in the investment world, Mackenzie Investments has a fantastic website. I think another big thing that our company, along with kind of all the other investment firms out there, are really doing are podcasts, and a lot of those can be available on like Spotify or things like that. And that could be, going for a walk around and you're learning, and it's not it's nice having a break from just having to look at your screen and learn that way. But that would probably be one of the big ways. And again, if you're kind of interested in the markets and investments and all of that, there's many different websites out there that you can sign up to receive a daily email. Some of them are kind of more new and not as kind of maybe stagnant as data driven. The Morning Brew, that's a pretty interesting one. It kind of gives you like little snapshots of things. And then there's obviously more market focused ones. So those are a great way for information to come to you, to almost kind of remind you to continue to stay up on those current events. So that would be another way to kind of add to that.
Amy, is there anything that you want?
I mean, I would agree with, I don't have anything more to add than what everyone has said. I would say the other kind of basic thing you could do, I mean, everyone is on the web or on the internet, so like check out the newspaper every day, go to the finance section. I know when I was a new grad, I looked at that all the time, and you'd be amazed at the stuff you learn, right? And so educate yourself on what's happening today, right, in the current markets, in the current world, because it is a different one right now. And so I'd encourage you to do all the things that all my fellow panelists have mentioned, and then just be up to date on what's happening in today's world. And you can do that by going on to Vancouver Sun, National Post, Globe and Mail, New York Times, right? I mean, there's lots of great resources out there to understand what's happening in the financial sector.
I think the last piece that I would add, we started to get into sort of trade media or things that you can peruse. And I think within the insurance industry, certainly I'm going to plug the Career Connections website. It's a great place to kind of go and learn as much as you can from a neutral source about the industry. That's what we're here to do, so that you can make decisions and have informed choices about where you go in the sector. But also, like Canadian Underwriter or Insurance Business Magazine, they have really great kind of resources that you can kind of tap into and get those daily feeds. I'd also invite you to kind of case it a little bit, right? Like, what would you do? How would you handle this situation? When you see it played out in the trade media and you can see what the industry's response was, if you see an interesting story, read the follows and see if you were right on the money. And if you were, that might give you sort of some insights in terms of whether or not that might be the right role for you. So get kind of creative with how you're also engaging the content and seeing how you're applying your skills and having that future forward approach.
Great, wonderful. I'm going to now pass it on to Natalia for some audience questions.
Thank you so much, Yana. Thank you so much, our panelists. So we had some questions come in, and one of them being, you all mentioned the importance of being innovative during this time, specifically to deliver the same quality of service to clients. Is there anything specific, any specific action your organizations have done to stand out as innovative?
So prior to the pandemic, there wasn't a virtual exam solution. You could not get licensed, you could not complete your designation without having the opportunity to be able to write those exams. Those were face-to-face examinations and in-person proctored. Our organization managed within a matter of weeks to undo 75 years of history, and we offered virtual solutions and put those into place, even for licensing across the country in various communities of practice. So able to help out our regulator partners in terms of feeding the talent pipeline with licensed and qualified professionals.
Yeah, I would say our training platform is pretty much all virtual now too, so definitely would agree with Trevor on that one. I would say the other piece that we've implemented and they're continuing to explore is just the technology available to service members. So in a credit union, we call our clients or customers members. How are we doing that virtually versus in person, right? How can you make an appointment and talk to your financial advisor from your kitchen table while, you know, the financial planner might be at their kitchen table, right? And so it's these types of things that are that we're exploring and hopefully going to be doing more of to make it easier for our clients, right?
I just would add to that. So in our world, the sales team works with advisors, as I mentioned before, and I think I really applaud our sales team because they've looked for ways to connect with advisors to make it easier for those advisors to connect with their investors, understanding that they can't do the face-to-face. So a number of our sales teams held sessions with advisors who weren't familiar with Zoom or MS Teams as an example, and really kind of walk them through that technology, how they could share a screen and do all of those sort of things. So that was an innovative way to try to partner with these advisors to make it much easier for them to connect with their end clients, was one of the ways we did.
I don't even think I know where to start. And I also don't know everything we've done, every innovative activity we've done, although I know that we've actually shared a lot, again, back on our website. We've moved very, very quickly to adapt where we had to. We've, as an organization, and I know our advisors were immediately proactive in reaching out to clients and and being reassuring around, how we're going to stay connected. We think even with respect to individuals who, we're so used to just walking into their local branches and up to the counter. Part of their social interaction throughout the week was to stop in at the bank and do some banking. Couldn't necessarily do that anymore. So really working with our clients to, reassure them that a lot could be done on the bank machines and using resources and technology to do banking and to connect with clients. And we've seen a lot of that happening. We continue to look at, how can we make the most of some of the things that have come up that are best practices and speed up onboarding. Our training and development. I mean, we did virtual orientation with 900 plus students, and the majority of them working from home. So there was a lot of adaptability and creativity and initiative that went into that. And it was, trusting in the technology that we were already developing and being okay when sometimes there were glitches. So yeah, I don't know if that really even answered the question, but.
Thank you so much. Yeah, there's definitely a lot to be done, especially now, and innovation is moving us forward at this time, absolutely. Maybe we'll take one more question, and then we are just being tight for time a little bit. Maybe we'll talk about specific certifications. So are there any specific certifications related to your industry or firm that you would recommend newly graduated students to look into to stand out among other candidates who applied?
I think if you're talking about entry level, not so much. But if you're looking at, financial planning or wealth management, there's your mutual funds license, your Canadian securities, financial planning certificates. So those are all things worth doing to basically give you a bit of a competitive advantage. But if most of you are coming with not a lot of corporate experience and it's your kind of first gig, I would say don't worry about that too much right now, because once you're in, you're able to build on those experiences with that education piece, right?
I would say for our industry, it's not mandatory. Again, kind of like what Amy was saying, once you're in the door, there is obviously that opportunity to build on the education side, but your Canadian securities course, your CSC, is kind of the foundation that many people will build upon that and decide what different direction. But understanding that that isn't necessarily a requirement for an initial position with Mackenzie. But I think the biggest recommendation for me would be, if you're applying for a position and perhaps you don't have that, or even if you do, is to really spend some time on the company website, wherever you're applying for, to really understand about what that business model looks like, because I think that in itself will show some preparedness and obviously preparing for that particular interview. And perhaps there's a couple things that stand out to you. Write those down on a piece of paper, have them when you come to the interview, reference that particular, because they're going to ask about what do you know about the company, and further to just regurgitating a stat or something, I would recommend talking about why did it stand out, why did it sit with you, and that's kind of other ways outside of your designation that you could show some preparedness. And
I will often say, if you're competing for a position and that job posting, might say, mutual funds, preferred, not required, anything along those lines, CSC, the same thing. Think very simply. In fact, who else is applying for that job? If they already have their accreditation, they really have one more skill set in their toolkit that they can promote. So, look at those requirements and think about the advantage it might give you in completing it. If securities is not what you're actually aiming for, then of course it's not going to be a requirement. But maybe there are other accreditations or courses that would benefit that job you're targeting. I always look at the size of RBC. I mean, not everybody is in a client-facing role. And so there are other types of technical skills that are going to be an advantage to take on different positions. So again, do that research and think about how it might give you an advantage if you did have that completed.
Within the insurance industry, there's really one role where the license is a requirement in order to practice, and that would be the broker or the agent sort of role. We would recommend that if you're thinking about that, at least mapping out the plan with your employer, so that if they did make an offer, that you intend to get it quickly, or that you've been studying or working towards it. That could offer a little bit of advantage. The Chartered Insurance Professional designation, the CIP that was noted in the question, you can't actually earn without 1 year of industry work experience. So that doesn't mean that 1 or 2 courses wouldn't be something that we wouldn't suggest not to do, but I wouldn't say that it's a requirement. Your background from your post-secondary education, particularly if it's a well-rounded, interdisciplinary kind of foundational couple of years, we can see applicability in a variety of contexts. Just because insurance touches everything that we do in life and in business, we're looking for people with diverse educational backgrounds. That being said, I'd also, rather than necessarily just the technical knowledge, I would think about how your workplace critical skills apply in our context. So regardless of which sort of area of financial services you're looking at, what does good communication skills look like in investment? What does it look like in insurance? What does it look like in commercial banking versus personal banking? Same with insurance. What does it look like in our environments? And so being able to just articulate how those workplace critical skills apply will equally value and give you some opportunity to demonstrate why you're a great fit for our organizations.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Oh.
Can I just ask one thing very quickly, because I know we're tight for time here, but for anyone who's on the line, I'd encourage you to, so one thing we're trying to do at Coast Capital is how do we engage youth in a better way? And youth in our minds is kind of 18 to 29 years old. And so in our data anyways. And so I'd encourage all of you, we need to understand as well, how do we engage better with you, right? And so don't rely on us to tell you all the time. So I'd encourage you guys, either drop me a note on LinkedIn or drop a note to Jana and Natalia and tell us what can we do better to engage you, because you are an important demographic for us as well. And so I'll just leave it at that.
Fantastic. Speaking of engaging and getting and connected with your networks, we've mentioned that a few times, but LinkedIn is a great tool. So if you are looking to gain some information or to connect with somebody who you may already know or not know, LinkedIn is a great way to do so. And I would encourage you to connect with our panelists if you get a chance to do so as well. So unfortunately, we won't be able to answer all the questions that are in there. So I'll try to answer some of the ones in the text as well. But I just want to say thank you to Amy, Andrea, Lindsay, and Trevor today for providing their expertise to help us navigate the finance and insurance market, especially during these uncertain times. Thank you for sharing your insight and advice. I'm definitely taking a lot of tips and tricks away today, and I hope our attendees are as well. We hope you enjoyed the finance and insurance sector panel today, and thank you again to our panelists for joining and sharing their knowledge. Thanks everyone for joining, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.